What's going on, arcade nerds? This channel of mine here, this channel of yours, is just me screwing around, doing things I love, hobbies that I enjoy doing. And just once, just one video, I just want to show you my other hobby. And it's been, you know, years ago I was very, very in-depth in this hobby. In fact, at one time I had 7 saltwater tanks in my house before I had arcade machines. And this hobby here of keeping saltwater fish has been a huge part of my life, and I just want to make one video. Just give me one video. I just want one video where I want to talk about my other hobby. This is my 200-gallon saltwater fish tank. The tank is made by Oceanic, probably from the mid-90s. This was a high-end tank back in the day. There were cheaper brands called All Glass and things like that, Marineland, but Oceanic was like the top #1 tank. Now, I'm on a very strict budget, so what I did was I made my own filters. See, these filters is actually it's actually a mop bucket. There's 2 mop buckets. They cost $11 a piece. I cut them in half, and each side holds 2 gallons of water. 2 gallons here, 2 gallons here. And the mop buckets are filled with nothing but live rock. And live rock is actually rocks that came from the ocean that had living organisms growing on them. And those living organisms are bacteria and so on, and the bacteria eat the fish poop. Well, they convert it from one form of nitrogen to another form of nitrogen. But you know, in this tank is sort of recent. It's only been set up for about 6 months, but it's something that I've been wanting to get going for a long time. I used to be really big. Believe it or not, I had probably $7,000 into a Reef tank at one time, way back when. And you know, this is before arcade machines. But this time around I'm on a budget, so I'm using a lot of homemade stuff and whatever. This pump here is 2,600 liters per hour, and this pump here is something close to it. And it just pumps water into the buckets. The water flows across the rocks. The rocks themselves will filter and buffer the water. But I have some cheap fish here. Here's a Clarky clownfish. There's different types of damsels, 4-striped damsel, domino damsel, which is right here. And there's different types of chromuses. There's a blue chromus, and there's a couple green chromuses in here. They kind of school together. Here's one. There's another type of damsel. Now down here I have here's an eel right here. See that guy? That eel is about 2 feet long. And there's another eel over here. You can't see his head right now. He's about 1.5 feet. And down here, by the way, that's a snowflake eel. And when I originally got this eel down here, he was in freshwater. But this type of eel lives in estuaries originally. And when they're juvenile, they live in freshwater. And when they become an adult, they migrate into saltwater. So I acclimated him into saltwater, and so he's been in saltwater for about 6 months now. He's doing well. Often people will buy these eels at pet shops when they're in freshwater and think, oh, that's great, and then they have a shortened lifespan because they're supposed to go to saltwater at some point. But anyways, there's a lunar wrasse. Those guys get huge. I had one once that was almost a foot long. This guy's about 3 inches. And down here we have, he's all coiled up in there. I don't know if you can see him or not. But this is a white ribbon eel. He's about 3 feet long. And here is a batfish. He's about a foot tall and about a foot wide. I got this guy for only 20 bucks. Why did I get him so cheap? Because he was a return at a saltwater shop, and he has an issue. He has what's called Popeye, and one of his eyes is enlarged, and that originally stems from a fungal infection in some tank. And if it goes untreated, it becomes permanent, and so he has a permanent defect, and I don't care. You know, he can probably only see from one eye, but he's pretty old. You know, I mean, to be at the size he is. But yeah, this pump is just nothing but PVC pipes connected, going in there, and you know, from back in the day, I have probably 400 or so pounds of what this is called live rock, and you know, and since all the things on the outside of it have died, since I've stored them for all these years, you can kind of call it, well, it's actually called dry rock. But that's that. Look at that beautiful, beautiful lunar wrasse. I put a piece of cocktail shrimp, raw cocktail shrimp, in here to try to coax the eels out. But for now, we can watch them pick on the cocktail shrimp. Underneath this rock, you can actually see a sand sifting starfish, at least the tentacle of them. It looks like the snowflake eel, well, he did move around a little bit. Once he starts smelling that cocktail shrimp, he'll come out and start searching for it. And I think he's already starting to freak out, waiting for that cocktail shrimp. Now, I just fed these guys earlier today, so seems like they're not as interested. But this guy right here is very vicious. When he smells that food, he is vicious. And he likes that cocktail shrimp. Yeah, this tank is 6 feet wide. Here's a zoom in of that other eel. There's the ribbon eel, trying to figure out what he's doing. That eel is about 3 feet long. All those eels, they kind of like to cuddle up against each other. And sometimes they get irritated when one moves and the other one doesn't want it. Anyways, I was thinking about putting some arcade machines inside the tank. I know it sounds funny, but just for ornamental reasons. And I was looking up different methods of how to prep things so they can safely go in a tank with fish. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to make like a little arcade scene, and the fish can swim around the arcade scene. That guy is a beast. See this clerky clown here? He is a type of clownfish. very similar to the percula or the ocellaris clownfish. There's an animated movie called Finding Nemo. He's in the same family as the percula clownfish, which is in that movie. That batfish is absolutely humongous. He's very friendly. I can stick my hand in the tank and he will like cuddle up to my hand and kind of like scratch himself with my hand. Here is my hydrometer, and if you're not familiar with saltwater tanks, you need to make sure the proportion of salt and water are correct, and the correct name for the mixture is the specific gravity, and you want this about in the middle. Looks like I'm a little high on salt, which is still in the safe range, but as this arrow rises, it says there's too much salt, and as this arrow drops down, you need to add some salty water. Here is another tank that this is just a 125 gallon, and this is set up as of right now to cure my live rock, or cure my rock. A curing rock is a procedure that, let's say you know, with if you were to cycle your tank or let your tank run for a while to verify that the bacteria growth is growing on your rock, right? Well, you do that with fresh rock, and you cure it. When you cure rock, you let it sit in a working system for a while until any dead materials and any other chemicals or anything else can leach out of the rock, so it becomes fish safe, or safer for the fish in the future. And right over here is my filter. What I plan to do, it goes down to a sump filter. Now what I plan to do someday is, money is slowing the process, but eventually I will, is one of these days I want to make a reef tank. I used to be really big in reef tanks, and as you can see, this tank's a little taller than this tank, and I plan to build a whole new stand and raise it up. It's just some 2x4s, and then I will eventually fill this tank with coral. Tons and tons of different types of coral, and then this tank will be what's called a fish only tank. Why would I want to separate the fish and the coral? Well, I don't, to some degree, but fish eat and poop, okay? And so if you have lots of fish in a saltwater tank, which by the way, saltwater fish are more sensitive to impurities in the water, okay? This is a sealed system, so it holds all the impurities. It's not like the ocean. You can't just wash things away. Anyways, what will happen is corals are even more sensitive than the fish themselves. So I don't want to go crazy and put a whole bunch of fish in here, because when the fish make their waste, they will poison the corals to some degree. So if you were to have mostly corals in a reef tank and have just a few fish, your coral will be healthier overall than having a whole bunch of fish in one reef tank. Overall, many of these fish are what you would call cheap fish. You know, I don't want to go crazy and spend lots and lots of money, and I don't have lots and lots of money, so that helps out too, right? What? So, in general, if you are a seasoned saltwater fish keeper, you would see that a lot of these are the cheaper fish, on the cheaper side of the scale. I'm running a 300 watt heater, as you can see here. And some people might say, well, 300 watts, that's not enough to heat 200 gallons. But it is under one condition, and I'll tell you why. At the bottom of this tank, I have a thin piece of foam all the way across the tank. And that foam is serving two purposes. Number one, the foam sheet is insulating the tank. The whole bottom of this tank is insulated. Okay. Number two, which lets the heater work a lot less. The heater doesn't have to heat the ambient air as much, so it can heat, you know, more, so the heat can stay in the tank. Now the second reason why this foam is here is because large tanks especially, they need a very, very flat surface. If you were to have a little bump on the bottom, if I were to put a pebble at the corner of this tank, fill it up, it could very well crack the entire bottom of this tank when it has, you know, several. Okay, for example, salt water is 9 pounds per gallon. Nearly 9 pounds per gallon. So there's, plus the rocks, there's about a ton. There's about a ton of weight. Around 2,000 pounds of weight sitting here. And if you were to have, let's say, a pebble sitting here under this corner, you can crack the entire tank. So putting some thin foam underneath this tank will allow any imperfections to be absorbed, and you're sitting on a cushion of foam instead of a possible high spot or so on. Well, guys, thanks for watching my stupid fish video. Go ahead and give me a thumbs down. But I just want to do one video of one of my other hobbies. I have often thought about starting a second channel and just doing fish stuff, but I don't think I'm at a point where I could make a second channel, so I'll at least do one video here. Anyways, guys, if you somehow stumbled upon this video, realize that this isn't a fish channel. I do arcade stuff here. I love doing arcade stuff. But this is just that one video I wanted to do. Have a good one, guys.